Today on Gather and Grind, 100% rye sourdough with fresh milled flour. Delicious. 100% rye sourdough made with fresh milled flour. It is delicious. This is a dark, slightly sweet, kind of Eastern European German bread that just goes amazing with some cream cheese, some lox, even just some butter and salt. It is outstanding. Let's get into it. So, I've got about a cup and a half, that is 350 mils of water going into my bowl. Add to that, and I gotta turn on my scale here, 350 grams of sourdough starter. Now this is a lot of sourdough starter, but this is how it works and it is delicious. My sourdough starter is 100% rye all the time. Normally I do that with my einkorn, my wheat. Everything gets a little bit of rye to it. I just find it's a bit of a more active starter. Looks great. If you look here, it should be a nice bubbly active starter, really nice and thick. So we want 350 grams of that goes into my water. Mix your starter into your water, just kind of spread all of that around. You need to think of it not as a standard loaf. It is a completely different beast, but it is even easier to work with, believe it or not, once you get used to this. So just mix your starter all in until you can kind of get a nice little soup there. To that, we're gonna add 75 grams of molasses. That's about 3 tablespoons. This just adds a nice little sweetness to it. Check my scale there. Perfect. You can do this without, but it just adds that something extra special. Mix in your molasses so you have a nice, dark, brown, slightly sweet slurry here. And to that, about 10 grams of salt. And just mix that all around. Now, this is just at the right height. I have already weighed out my 500 grams of rye. That's just slightly over a pound. And I'm gonna grind that right in. I'll play you a little grinding music because this is loud. Start off at about one on your mill and get it going. And then I like to crank it down just a little bit to get a bit finer rye flour for this. It'll give you a much puffier, loftier loaf, something a little more lighter than your traditional rye, but still is going to have that dense, nice chew to it. Here's some music. All right. Take our mill away. All of our flour has been milled and is in there, and then I just take a spoon and mix it around. Now, rye is super sticky, and this is not going to be anything like a traditional dough. In fact, we're not looking for that stretch. We're not looking for window pane. You're just not going to get that out of a 100% rye, but you are going to get a delicious loaf in the end. Just mix that around. It's also going to not feel a lot like a wheat dough. It's going to look a lot more like a nice thick cookie dough. Just mix that around. You're not trying to develop any gluten or anything. You just want to get all of that flour absorbed into this nice shaggy kind of thick cookie dough batter. All right, so nice thick texture. You're looking for something just a little bit like that. As I said, if you threw some chocolate chips in that, you would think you were making cookies. But that's it. So if you make this in the morning, cover it, pop it in the fridge now for 8 to 10 hours, and you'd be ready for your next stage in the evening. You could also pop this in the late at night and pop it in the fridge overnight, wake up in the morning and do the next stage. Once you've got it covered, into the fridge for 8 to 10 hours. And through the magic of kitchen cooking, I have another one all ready to go. This has been sitting overnight and you can see it is puffed up a fair bit. Starting to get these little cracks there. It's nice and cold. Rye, as mentioned, super sticky, so get your hands wet and you can pull that out and you'll have this big, nice lump of what I said looks like cookie dough. Put that on a floured board a little bit, and you're just gonna knead that a little bit. Just redistribute all of the flour in there. Let the sourdough have a little access to some new material. Because it's nice and cold, it's not too sticky, and you've wet your hands and got a nice little flour there. But that's about it. You don't have to worry too much. It's actually surprisingly easy, but it works like a nice sourdough. If you work it too much, you're gonna start getting your hands sticky again. Now, this, as I said, is a sticky dough, so you definitely wanna get, if you've got a banneton with a cloth insert here, if not, just get a mixing bowl with a tea towel, and you wanna add a bunch of flour in there. Kind of tap it around. Don't be afraid to add a bunch. You can always dust it after, or it can create that nice little two-toned loaf afterwards. And just shape your rye into a ball, working quickly so you don't get, it's starting to get sticky already. There we go, and right into the banneton. Perfect. Now, that gets covered again, put back into the fridge for another 8 to 10 hours. So if you're doing this at night, cover it over. You'll be ready the next day to bake a lovely loaf. It's the next morning. Oven's on at 450 Fahrenheit, 230 Celsius with a pan of water in there getting nice and hot and steamy. My rye has come out of the fridge, and you won't notice a giant doming or jump up or anything like that. Rye is really going to be a dense, heavy, tight-knit crumb, but it is still going to be delicious here. You're also not going to get a ton of oven spring out of there, but you should notice a little bit of puffiness extra, maybe 20%, 25% rise in the bowl. Just flip that over there onto a sheet of parchment paper and gently release your banneton. So at this stage, you got a couple options. You could leave it on the counter for about 10 minutes or so. It might develop a little bit of crackleness to it, which gives it a lovely look here. But I find with my fresh milled flour, since I've started using that, the loaf actually holds together really, really well. And sometimes I get some explosions off the side. So just to control those, I'm gonna score this a little bit, just along that nice little cross there, where the mark was. I leave that little dusting of flour on there. It'll get a really nice contrast with the dark rye and the on the inside and the toasting on the outside. That goes into your oven for about 45 minutes. Steamy. All right. 45 minutes later, and it's time to check our loaf in the oven. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Perfect. We've got the nice dark caramelization on the top there, and it is toasty, but I'm just gonna remove this to a wire rack. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Hot, hot, hot. Now, that looks so nice, you might be tempted to cut into it, but with rye, you need to let that sit and rest. Ideally for a day, but if I want to have that for dinner tonight in 8 hours, then we could probably make that work. But rye needs some time to set up. If you cut into it too early, you're going to get a gummy crumb and just not a nice texture. It needs a little bit of time. It can even go for 2 days before cutting into it. And you are going to be happier and happier with the results as it just kind of ripens and gets more and more delicious. So we're going to check back tonight when we can cut into this and see how it looks. All right, so it is 8 hours later. Ideally, as mentioned, you could wait a whole day. You can even wait 2 days for rye. It will just keep getting better and better, but I can't wait anymore to give this a try. This has been sitting under a cloth all day long here. I can't wait to cut into this and see what it looks like. Oh yeah, beautiful crunch. Let's have a look. Oh, perfect. That nice, dense crumb there. Still a bit lighter than a lot of ryes you'll have. You got a bit of loft to it, but that is a fantastic loaf right there. All right, let's cut into this and have a little taste, because looking is not enough. You need to give this a try. And don't forget, if you like this recipe, like and subscribe for more fresh milled flour. This looks fantastic, and you can use this corned beef on rye sandwich. You can smear some cream cheese and some smoked salmon. I love it with some pickled mushrooms you can find in one of my recipes. I'll put it up there. Or at my house, just straight with a little bit of butter. And a sprinkle of salt. Just like that. Oh, it's sweet. It's nutty, it's hearty. Oh, man. Beautiful crumb. I might have left it a little bit longer, but just put that cut side down on your cutting board. Come back and check it tomorrow. It'll get better and better. Oh God, that's good. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more recipes like this. Oh, that's good.